It was a sweltering summer afternoon at Greenwood Community Pool, a neighborhood staple for decades. The pool's turquoise water sparkled under the sun, and the air was filled with the sounds of children laughing, the rhythmic splash of diving, and the occasional hum of a distant lawn mower. It was a place where the community gathered, free from the cares of the world, if only for a little while. Marcus Lewis, a 32-year-old graphic designer, had decided to visit the pool after finishing a big project for one of his clients. He was feeling good, relaxed, accomplished, and ready to unwind. Clad in a simple black swim trunk and a pair of aviator sunglasses, he carried a book under his arm and a bottle of water in his hand. He settled into a lounge chair under the shade of a tall oak tree that stood guard over the pool's edge, providing a much-needed break from the relentless sun. This pool was special to Marcus. As a child, he had spent countless summers here, splashing around with friends, racing laps, and savoring ice pops from the small snack shack. Greenwood Pool was a sanctuary, a thread that connected his childhood to his adult life. Now, as an adult, coming back to this familiar place always felt like stepping into a time capsule, the same vibrant colors, the same comforting sounds, and the same sense of belonging he had known as a kid. As he opened his book and immersed himself in its pages, the sounds of the pool melted into the background. The chatter of nearby families, the playful shrieks of children, and the gentle lapping of water blended into a soothing symphony. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt at peace. Karen Simmons walked into the pool area carrying an oversized tote bag, her expression already sour. She was a middle-aged woman with platinum blonde hair styled immaculately, a large sun hat perched on her head, and a bright white sundress that practically screamed, "I'm better than you." Karen was known in the community for her vocal complaints, ranging from the quality of the pool water to the children's noise levels. Today, she had a new target. Karen's arrival was an event in itself. She strutted onto the pool deck with an air of self-importance, her eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk surveying its territory. To her, the pool was not just a place to cool off. It was a space to assert control, to ensure everything met her exacting standard. As her gaze swept across the pool area, it landed on Marcus. She paused, her brow furrowing. She took in his relaxed posture, the book in his hands, and his complete lack of awareness that he was under scrutiny. To Karen, this scene didn't sit right. He didn't fit her mental picture of who belonged here. The longer she stared, the more her discomfort grew. She began to construct a narrative in her mind, one that justified her growing suspicion. Karen's suspicion was quick to solidify into certainty. She stormed over to the lifeguard's stand, where Jake, a lanky college student, was perched. Jake had worked at the pool for 3 summers now and was well acquainted with Karen's penchant for causing trouble. "Excuse me, young man," Karen said, her voice tight. Jake looked down, already bracing himself. "Yes, ma'am," he replied cautiously. Karen gestured toward Marcus. "That man over there. Have you checked his membership? He doesn't look like someone who belongs here." Jake frowned. "I'm pretty sure he's been a member for years. I've seen him here before." Karen huffed. "Well, I've never seen him. You should double-check. We can't be too careful these days." Jake hesitated. He didn't want to argue with Karen, but he also knew there was no basis for her concern. "I'll keep an eye on things," he said, hoping to appease her. Karen gave him a curt nod and walked away, but it was clear she wasn't done. Karen made her way across the pool deck, weaving through the loungers and splashing children, until she stood in front of Marcus. He looked up, startled by her sudden presence. "Excuse me," Karen said, her tone sharp and accusatory. "Do you have a membership here?" Marcus blinked, confused. "Yes, I do. Is there a problem?" Karen crossed her arms, her sun hat casting a shadow over her face. "Well, I've never seen you here before. Are you sure you're allowed to use this pool?" Marcus' confusion gave way to frustration. He had encountered people like Karen before, people who assumed the worst about him based on nothing more than his appearance. He took a deep breath, determined to keep his cool. I've been a member of this pool since I was a kid, he said evenly. I've probably been coming here longer than you have. Karen's face flushed, but she pressed on. I just find it strange, that's all. People like you don't usually. She hesitated, catching herself. I mean, you don't look familiar. Before Marcus could respond, another voice chimed in. Is there a problem here? Jasmine Perez, a high school teacher and longtime community member, had been lounging nearby and overheard the exchange. She approached with her hands on her hips, her expression one of barely restrained irritation. Karen turned to Jasmine, looking flustered. I'm just asking a simple question. I'm concerned about the safety of our community pool. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Safety? From someone sitting quietly and reading a book? That's what you're worried about. Karen bristled. We have rules, you know. Membership rules. I'm just trying to ensure everything is in order. The only thing out of order here is you harassing someone for no reason, Jasmine shot back. This pool is for everyone in the community. If you can't handle that, maybe you're the one who doesn't belong. Karen's lips tightened and she squared her shoulders. If you're going to be so defensive, maybe I'll just call the police to sort this out. Her words caused a collective gasp among nearby poolgoers. Jasmine's expression darkened, and Marcus stood, his frustration evident now. Call the police for what? Marcus asked, his voice calm but firm. For reading a book? For existing in a public space I've paid to use. Jasmine stepped closer to Karen. Listen, Karen, she said, her voice low and steady. You might think threatening to call the police is some kind of power move, but all it does is show everyone here how unreasonable you're being. Marcus isn't doing anything wrong, and you know it. So unless you want to make a scene you'll regret, I suggest you sit back down and think about what you're doing. Karen looked around, suddenly aware of the eyes on her. Jake had stepped closer too, his expression uneasy but resolute. Ma'am, I think it's best if you leave Marcus alone, he said. There's no problem here. Karen's face burned red, but she finally backed down. Fine, she muttered. But don't say I didn't warn you. She turned and stalked off to a distant corner of the pool deck, plopping down in a lounge chair with a huff. The tension lingered in the air as the crowd slowly returned to their activities. Marcus sighed and turned to Jasmine. Thanks for stepping in. I appreciate it. Jasmine smiled. No problem. People like her need to be called out. You shouldn't have to deal with that. Marcus nodded. Unfortunately, it's not the first time. Probably won't be the last. They talked for a few minutes longer, sharing their frustrations about the subtle and not-so-subtle ways bias reared its ugly head. Jasmine's support meant a lot to Marcus. It reminded him that there were people willing to stand up for what was right. As the day went on, word of the incident spread. People whispered about what had happened, some expressing outrage, others embarrassment for not stepping in themselves. For Marcus, the experience was a stark reminder of the challenges he still faced, even in a place that felt like home. But it wasn't all bad. The solidarity he felt from Jasmine and the quiet nods of support from other poolgoers gave him a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, moments like these could spark change. When he finally left the pool that evening, the sun casting long shadows over the water, he felt a renewed determination. He'd keep coming back to Greenwood Pool. He wouldn't let people like Karen make him feel unwelcome. After all, it was his community, too. Over the next few days, conversations about the incident spread beyond the pool. Residents discussed it at grocery stores, coffee shops, and town hall meetings. Some praised Jasmine for standing up to Karen, while others debated the larger issues of bias and privilege in their community. The pool's management decided to take action, posting new signs that emphasized the pool's commitment to being a safe and inclusive space for everyone. They also hosted a community forum to address concerns and encourage dialogue. Marcus attended and shared his story, hoping to inspire others to reflect on their own biases and take a stand against discrimination. For Karen, the incident was a wake-up call. While she initially dismissed the backlash as overblown, she eventually began to reflect on her actions. Perhaps it was the pointed questions from her own friends, or the embarrassment of being the center of controversy, but something shifted. She started to see the harm her behavior had caused and began seeking ways to educate herself. A week later, Karen did something unexpected. She approached Marcus at the pool. He was wary at first, but her demeanor was different, less confrontational, more thoughtful. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I want to apologize. I was wrong to approach you like that. I made assumptions that I shouldn't have." Marcus studied her face, searching for sincerity. He saw it there. "Thank you," he said. "It's not easy to admit when you're wrong." "I appreciate that." Karen nodded. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I realize now how I must have come across, and it's not the kind of person I want to be. If there's anything I can do to make it right, please let me know." Marcus considered her words. "If you really mean that," he said, "then maybe you could join some of the community discussions Jasmine's been organizing. It's a good space to learn and grow." Karen hesitated but then nodded. "I'd like that. Thank you." Over the next few weeks, Karen became a surprising presence at these gatherings. She listened more than she spoke, taking in the perspectives of people whose experiences differed from her own. Slowly but surely, she began to build bridges with the very people she had once judged unfairly. For Marcus, this reconciliation was a reminder of the power of dialogue and understanding. It didn't erase the past, but it offered a path forward. And as he watched Karen help set up chairs for the next discussion, he couldn't help but feel hopeful. Karen's transformation did not come without challenges. At first, her participation in the discussions was met with skepticism. Many in the community still harbored anger and resentment toward her actions at the pool. Yet, over time, her consistent effort to engage sincerely began to win people over. She acknowledged her mistakes publicly, even sharing how her upbringing and biases had shaped her perceptions. While some found it difficult to fully forgive, others began to appreciate her willingness to grow. Karen also began volunteering at local events, contributing to projects aimed at fostering inclusivity in the community. She worked alongside people from diverse backgrounds, learning firsthand the value of collaboration and shared purpose. One particular moment stood out to Marcus. During a community cleanup event, Karen and an older gentleman, Mr. Jenkins, a man she had previously ignored at public gatherings, shared a candid conversation about their experiences and dreams for Greenwood. Their laughter and connection were genuine, a testament to the changes in Karen's perspective. One evening, at another discussion meeting, Karen stood up to speak. Her voice trembled slightly as she addressed the group. "I know I've caused hurt," she began, "but I'm here because I want to do better. I've learned that it's not enough to just be sorry, you have to put in the work, and I want to thank this community for giving me the chance to change." The room was silent for a moment before Jasmine spoke. "Karen, it takes courage to admit when you're wrong and even more to try and fix it. I think I speak for many of us when I say we appreciate your effort." The applause that followed wasn't thunderous, but it was sincere. Marcus smiled, feeling a sense of closure he hadn't anticipated. In the end, it wasn't just about one afternoon at the pool. It was about the kind of community they all wanted to build, one where everyone truly belonged. Through small acts of courage, honest conversations, and collective effort, Greenwood began to change. And while there was still much work to be done, Marcus felt proud to be part of something bigger than himself.